views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hi, and welcome to Open BXRx, BronxNet special coverage providing you the latest information, resources, services, and community efforts taking place locally here in the Bronx and virtually during the pandemic. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, and today is Tuesday, February 23rd. Coming up, February is American Heart Month. We'll discuss heart health and blood pressure with our partners at Empire BlueCross BlueShield. Then, we'll learn about the most common heart disease here in the Bronx, the importance of preventative care, and how COVID-19 may affect the heart. After that, Community Board 6 recently approved the development of a hotel and affordable housing project on Arthur Avenue, but not all residents feel the same. We'll talk to two residents on two sides to learn more. And Commission ENT LLC joins us to answer some common questions for the upcoming tax season. So stick around. Open BXRX starts now. Welcome to Open BXRX on BronxNet. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, inviting you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. Every month, we'll have a special segment here on Open BXRX where medical professionals join us to provide insights into how we can all be healthier. Welcome to the Whole Health Report, sponsored by Empire BlueCross BlueShield. As some of us may know, February is Heart Month. On today's Whole Health Report with Empire, we'll be talking about heart health and blood pressure specifically. We're happy to welcome back Dr. Craig Hersh, the Chief Medical Officer at Empire, and a special guest, Dr. Maday Gonzalez, an interventional cardiologist from Montefiore Medical Center. Dr. Hersh and Dr. Gonzalez, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, Sonny.
Of course. So today we are going to be discussing blood pressure. Dr. Hersh, can you please tell us a little bit about why we wanted to focus on this particular topic this month?
Sure. High blood pressure in the Bronx is a very important topic. 30% of Bronxites, adults, have high blood pressure, and that's the highest of any borough in New York. And high blood pressure is very important because it goes on to lead to heart disease. Heart disease, as many of you know, is the #1 killer of Americans and people right here in New York.
Thank you, doctor. And when we talk about high blood pressure, what is the difference between high blood pressure and hypertension?
Yeah, sometimes the terms are really interchangeable. The word high blood pressure can refer to any one time when you get your blood pressure checked. And if it's up, somebody may say your blood pressure is high. But if you have the ongoing condition of having high blood pressure most or all the time, that's called hypertension. But to be honest, everyone just calls that high blood pressure. So it can get a little confusing. Now, normal blood pressure in an adult is 120/80 or less. Once your numbers start to go higher than that, it can be elevated or considered high blood pressure or hypertension. And one of the best ways that people can determine if they have high blood pressure, if they're on the fence, they're not sure after seeing their doctor, or if you have high blood pressure and then you want to monitor it to make sure that you have good control, is using one of these ambulatory blood pressure monitors. It's a home monitor you can just put on. It's covered by Empire and other insurers. And it's really one of the better ways to know that you're having good control of your blood pressure.
Got it. Thank you, Dr. Hersh. And as we know, mortality rates are really high when it comes to high blood pressure. Why is this? Why do so many people pass away due to high blood pressure?
So high blood pressure is known as the silent killer. People who have high blood pressure usually don't have any symptoms. And if you don't have any symptoms, you don't often take any actions. And those actions include making sure you're on a diet that's low in sodium and also rich in fruits and vegetables, usually something we call the DASH diet. People may not do the exercises that they need to do. people may not visit their physicians as often as they should or take their medications, all because they're feeling relatively okay.
And Dr. Gonzalez, as an interventional cardiologist at Montefiore, you can give us a good idea of what's happening right here in our borough of the Bronx. But first, can you tell us what an interventional cardiologist does and what your role is?
Yes, thank you, Sonny. So an interventional cardiologist is a cardiologist that uses invasive and non-invasive measures to not only diagnose but also treat those diseases that affects the cardiovascular system in its entirety. Not only the heart, but the vasculature, carotids, legs, brain. So we used anywhere from lifestyle changes, counseling, to a little bit more minimally invasive procedures called cardiac catheterizations, angiograms to diagnose and treat these diseases.
Got it. And Dr. Gonzalez, just as a plus for people at home, invasive, does that mean when you're touching the heart on the inside?
No, that would be actually open heart surgery.
Okay.
We do it via a big IV that we put in the artery and then go with catheters up to the heart or the legs or the area in trouble.
Got it. Thank you for clearing that up. And can
Yes.
you please share what the most pressing heart health issues are here in the Bronx in particular?
Yeah, so hypertension has to be number one. Across the country and the world, hypertension is the number one cause of cardiovascular disease. Like Dr. Hersh said, not only cardiovascular disease, but also mortality is the cause of death. Here in America, 68 million people suffer from hypertension, or high blood pressure. And that is equivalent to 1 in 3 adults have hypertension. And this is a scary number, 20% of those people don't even know they have high blood pressure. They're walking around with high blood pressure, and like Dr. Hersh said, until something bad happens, meaning a stroke, heart attacks, kidney dysfunction, they don't know it. That's very, very scary.
That's definitely scary. And Dr. Hersh, why does hypertension go undiagnosed so often and untreated?
Well, like I said, it's a silent condition, so people don't have symptoms. The other is there's just really not enough awareness, right? Being that it's so prevalent and so dangerous, we need to focus on this. And that's why we're partnering with folks over at Montefiore and Dr. Gonzalez, and we're partnering with BronxNet, and we're partnering with the New York City Department of Health to get the word out. Because the more people know, the better the likelihood that we can help people. And as you know, and we said it last time, our mission at Empire is to materially and measurably improve the health of all New Yorkers, and blood pressure is the number one place to start.
Absolutely. We're always glad to have you here, educating our Bronxites and, letting people know about those important factors especially when it comes to heart health this month and even beyond this month. Dr. Hersh, I read recently that COVID-19 lockdowns appear to have caused more cases of high blood pressure. Can you please share how COVID-19 and stress are related and interconnected to heart health and blood pressure?
Sure. I mean, one of the ways to control blood pressure are through some lifestyle activities. Being sedentary is bad. So for blood pressure, so people who are not able to go out and about and take regular walks or do regular exercise, or they're sitting all day, not good. Same thing with diet. You would think people are at home, they could be eating what they want, but you need to be on a proper diet to control your blood pressure. The other thing is sort of stress and alcohol, right? Those things also contribute adversely to high blood pressure. But the sort of inverse of what you were talking about, during 2020, during the time of COVID, deaths due to high blood pressure were up 40% in the Bronx. So it's because people maybe weren't getting the care that they needed and doing the things that they needed to do. It's hard.
Absolutely. And what tips or advice can you give people to address the issues of high blood pressure today, doctor?
Again, increasing awareness, seeing your physicians, doctors like Dr. Gonzalez and other doctors over at Montefiore and other facilities here in the Bronx. You can always get information. There's a couple of really good websites, montefiore.org, of course, heart.org, which is the American Heart Association website. There's information on high blood pressure. And lastly, for resources in particular, nyc.gov.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hersh and Dr. Gonzalez, for joining us today. And we'll see you next month for another topic here on the Whole Health Report.
Thank you, Sonny.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you both. Again, this is the Whole Health Report sponsored by Empire Blue Cross Blue Shield. Every month we'll have a new topic. For this month, we're specifically focusing on Heart Month. So make sure that you take care of your own heart. I know that February 14th, Valentine's Day just passed, and we like to spread the love to our family and our friends, but we also have to spread the love to ourselves and take care of our hearts as well. Thank you again, doctors. We'll be right back.
At Empire, we're proud of the legacy we've built. As the oldest health plan in New York, we've been here for families like yours for over 80 years. We know they mean everything, and you'll do anything to help keep them healthy. When you're part of our family, we do the same for you. We've built a strong network of thousands of doctors and specialists who understand your needs and speak your language, so you get the best care possible right in your own neighborhood. From your baby's first doctor visits to your yearly wellness visit to finding ways to eat healthy meals, our benefits help you and yours stay healthy. Focus on your family and leave the rest to us.
Learn more at empireblue.com/info or call 1-844-430-1699.
Welcome back. This February, we're continuing our awareness on American Heart Month. A healthy heart is always essential, but especially during the current pandemic. People with heart disease and other medical conditions appear to be at a higher risk for more severe symptoms or complications if they contract COVID-19. How and why? Joining us now to discuss and share more is Dr. Mandeep Kainth, cardiologist at Montefiore Health System. Welcome, doctor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Of course. So to start off, doctor, can you first please explain some of the signs and symptoms of heart conditions and which ones are most common here in the Bronx? And how about detecting those symptoms during the pandemic?
Sure. So the most prevalent cardiac conditions in the Bronx is coronary artery disease. This condition is caused by atherosclerosis, which is the buildup of cholesterol inside your arteries. This could progress and lead to narrowing of the arteries that supply blood and nutrients to your heart. And the most severe and emergent conditions would be if one or more of these arteries gets completely occluded and no blood flow occurs throughout the heart. We would call that a myocardial infarction, otherwise known as a heart attack. It's important to recognize that heart attacks will still happen during a pandemic. These are medical emergencies, and getting quick care is critical to limit any heart damage. There's a saying that time is myocardium. So identifying and seeking attention faster will not only get you better faster, but it will also limit the damage to your health. And the signs and symptoms to watch out for a heart attack are chest pain, shortness of breath, and discomfort in the chest, arms, back, neck, or jaw. The key thing to remember is to not delay calling 911 because of fears that you might get COVID-19 at the hospital. And hospitals have safety measures in place to protect you from infection. And the bottom line is you're much more likely to have bad outcomes if you ignore the symptoms related to your heart condition.
Right. Thank you so much, doctor, for that background. And some of our viewers may be concerned, of course, as you mentioned, to go to the doctor at this time, but preventative care is absolutely important. And we're glad to have you here with us. But one of my questions regarding COVID-19 and heart conditions is, how does living with a heart condition place one at increased risk of severe illness if someone becomes infected with COVID-19?
Right. So there was a national study that found that 90% of the patients that were hospitalized with COVID-19 have at least one underlying comorbidity. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't just COVID-19 that brought them to the hospital, they also have other medical conditions. Of those 90% of patients that had these comorbidities, the most common was hypertension in about half of those patients. And then in another quarter of those patients, it was diabetes. And the remaining quarter was pre-existing heart disease. So there's a lot of data that shows that the clinical risk for severe COVID infection is associated with both both advanced age as well as pre-existing medical conditions, especially when you have two or more of these conditions. It's also important to note that not only does the existence of these conditions increase your chance of having COVID-19 and severe infections, but also if these conditions are poorly controlled. So people that have poorly controlled high blood pressure or poorly controlled diabetes are far worse than people that have those conditions that are well medically managed. There's also information that shows that in addition to just having multiple comorbidities, just frailty, overall frailty has been associated with more severe infection of COVID-19.
Got it. And doctor, I recently read that a study by the Kaiser Family Foundation found that COVID-19 has reduced the diagnosis of cardiovascular disease, sharply increasing mortality rates from heart disease. Can you please tell us about the rise in heart-related deaths and how these deaths could have possibly been prevented?
Certainly. So that's a very interesting topic right now. While hospitalization rates have been increased, actually surged secondary to COVID-19, there's clear evidence that patients in the US and even around the world have less commonly sought medical attention for a number of medical emergencies. This includes acute myocardial infarction or heart attack, as I was referring to before. Based on these studies, the expected ratio for mortality, meaning deaths related to heart attack, was significantly increased. But it was increased not only in the early periods of the pandemic, but also the late periods of the pandemic. And it's concerning that the rates of presentation to the hospital for heart attack have been low, even in the late periods of the pandemic, because this tells us that there are still patients who are not receiving timely healthcare. And the cause of the increased morbidity and the mortality, it's not still completely known at this time, but it's likely multifactorial. Different things. In part, it may be related to delays in the field, longer emergency medical services response time because of safety precautions and changes to the standard procedure. It can be anywhere from in-hospital delays, as evaluation in the ER and treatment in the cath lab is subject to potential delays of putting on PPE and getting all the appropriate equipment. But what's more concerning is that there's a large number of patients that seem like they're more reticent to presenting to the hospital with symptoms due to the fear of contracting the virus itself, right. Or due to fears of putting strain on the healthcare system, which is already overburdened. And as a result, these patients may be presenting to the emergency room later, which has been causing worse outcomes. There's also more information that there's the patients that have been hospitalized with heart attack during COVID-19 pandemic is lower. So it suggests that the older patients that are not being admitted or being represented in this cohort, perhaps they're just staying home or due to fears. And they are the ones that are more susceptible to complications if this is to happen. And we're seeing that. We've been seeing an increase in the out-of-hospital cardiac arrests, patients just calling 911 because they all of a sudden their heart stopped. Wow. And it might be related to patients that have been having symptoms of a heart attack, but due to fears of not coming in or just ignoring it, have kind of put off getting care. So one thing that's really important is that the heart care can't wait.
Right. No, that's very interesting and very jarring data, doctor. Thank you for sharing. We've heard often that COVID-19 affects the lungs. Does it also affect the heart? Can you give us a little bit of a bottom line with that?
Certainly. So COVID-19, like many other infections, it's a pro-inflammatory state. So inflammation is kind of the main driver here. And we know that the inflammation can occur in the lungs, but we also have seen cases where inflammation can occur in the heart as well. It can occur in the heart muscle itself, which gives rise to a condition known as myocarditis, which is inflammation of the muscle. It can also occur in the tissues around the heart, which gives rise to a condition known as pericarditis. And the two of these conditions can actually occur together in a condition known as myopericarditis. People that have previous cardiac conditions or a structurally abnormal heart, they might be at increased risk of developing these conditions. And even though that the degree of inflammation is mild, generally the long-term implications of these patients is not yet known. Even though the degree of inflammation is generally mild and the long-term implications of these abnormalities who have recovered in COVID-19 are still to be determined, the degree of cardiac involvement is not necessarily linked to the severity of the respiratory involvement. So in other words, a patient that is extremely unwell from myopericarditis can have very little lung involvement or vice versa. And there are also rare cases where fulminant myocarditis can lead to heart failure, or severe pericardial involvement can lead to something called pericardial tamponade, which is a condition in which fluid around the heart prevents the heart from being able to fill with blood, which is an emergent condition requiring emergent drainage of that fluid.
Got it. Thank you, doctor, for breaking those terms down. They're very complicated terms, but once a doctor comes and joins us on BronxNet, we're able to break it down and, explain what these things mean and how they affect your heart. So thank you. Another hot topic is, of course, vaccinations. Should people with heart disease get vaccinated? Are there any implications or risk for people with heart disease to get the vaccination?
So a strong yes, simply yes. Patients with heart conditions should get vaccinated, especially patients with more advanced heart disease and poorly controlled cardiac conditions. Of the patients that are being admitted with COVID-19, these are the patients that have been shown to have the higher rates of disease with severe infection and worse outcomes. And the risks of vaccination in a heart patient are no different than the risks for the general population. And so far, all the studies that we've been seeing have overwhelmingly shown that the vaccine has been safe and effective.
And just for our viewers to know, doctor, folks with underlying conditions such as heart disease are now eligible for that vaccine under the new protocol for vaccinations, correct? Since February 15th?
Yes, that is certainly correct. They are now eligible for these. And there have been a lot of talks between the ACC trying to get these patients a higher priority. And I'm glad that they are a higher priority because we've seen that these patients are the ones that have led to poorer outcomes. I would say, in addition to the COVID vaccine, all patients with heart disease should also get their flu vaccine. And COVID and the flu are a double threat to everyone, but especially if you have heart disease.
Absolutely. Doctor, before we go, can you please remind us of the importance of continuing regular cardiology visits during the pandemic? Again, is it safe for folks to still see their doctor, preventative care, just the importance of that?
Sure. So regular cardiology visits in general are extremely important. And the importance of continuing to do this is intensified during this times of the pandemic even more. Going back to what we discussed previously, patients with poorly controlled conditions such as hypertension and diabetes are at higher risk than those that are medically optimized. So each time you go to your cardiologist, it's another opportunity for you and your cardiologist to work together to further optimize your care. And not only will this lead to better outcomes from your cardiac conditions, but its implications in decreasing your risk of severe illness from COVID-19 are further amplified. In terms of safety at the clinic sites, to protect the health of all of our patients, we've instituted a variety of appropriate measures tailored to each setting that include rigorous cleaning measures, sanitation dispensers, masks, universal screenings, and designated patient areas, as well as social distancing to keep you and everyone around you safe.
Got it. And finally, how can people find out more information on heart health and possibly set an appointment on Montefiore to see you or another cardiologist, Dr. Kainth?
Certainly. So Montefiore.org is a very powerful website. Once you go on there, there's a lot of tools there. There's especially a link for COVID-19 and a lot of frequently asked questions. In terms of being able to find cardiology, there's a section on that website called Find Doctor. You can search by specialty, including cardiology. And I can you can provide you with the phone number as well.
Thank you so much again for your time, Dr. Kainth, and thank you for joining us on American Heart Health Month, February, to talk about this important topic here in the Bronx.
Thank you.
Of course. Dr. Mandeep Kainth is the cardiologist over at Montefiore Health System. Again, Montefiore's cardiology department and Dr. Kainth are here to serve you. For more information, you may call 718-920-5949 or visit montefiore.org for more info. We'll be right back.
Who's most at risk for coronavirus? People over 65, people with underlying medical conditions like heart disease, chronic lung disease, asthma, diabetes, people undergoing cancer treatment, and people with weakened immune systems. What should you do if you or a loved one is at higher risk? Avoid close contact with people, avoid crowds, stay home if you can, wash your hands frequently. Learn more ways to protect yourself and others at coronavirus.gov.
Welcome back. The Uniform Land Use Review Procedure, or ULURP, is a standardized procedure where applications affecting land use of the city are publicly reviewed. In a recent public hearing, although Community Board 6 members and the community voted in support of a proposed Arthur Ave Hotel, the community seems a little split on the decision to bring this new project to Belmont. Joining us now to share more are two community members on two different sides. For the project is Mr. Franz, chairman of the Housing Committee at Community Board 6, and against the project is resident Jose Padilla, who is also running for city council in District 15. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Of course. I'll start with Mr. Franz. Can you please tell us about the project and what developer Harry Bajraktari seeks to bring to Arthur Avenue?
Well, the idea of bringing a hotel to Arthur Avenue is nothing new. I'm a lifelong resident of the community also. And when I got involved with the merchant organization here back in the 90s, there was a push for a hotel in the community then being launched by the borough president's office. So for more than 25 years, we've been trying to bring a hotel to the area. And of course, we're very suspicious of outside developers and what might happen. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. We didn't want a white elephant in our community. So we were very happy when Mr. Bajraktari, who's been working on this for 10 years, it's nothing new. I saw plans for the hotel more than 5 years ago, and there's been adjustments made, to accommodate the issues brought up by the Business Improvement District and by the merchants. And Mr. Bajraktari is a member of the community also. His office is there. It's been there for decades. He owns a lot of real estate. His family is well known. His friends and family are there. He's given a lot of his time to the community, supported local community efforts, was a member of the board of directors of the Business Improvement District for a while. So this isn't a stranger, it's a person who has credibility, who we've seen the work he's done. So that was important to us also. Now, this particular project offers a number of things. I don't know if you want me to get into why we should have a hotel here to begin with.
Yes, I actually wanted to get into why and how it will benefit the community, in your opinion, if we can talk about that.
Well, first of all, in general, the Bronx is highly underserved by hotels. There's much a higher rate of hotels in all the other boroughs. Next, as far as our particular location, well, let's look at what we have here. We're walking distance to the Bronx Zoo. The Bronx Zoo is the second largest tourist attraction in the city of New York, getting more than 4 million visitors a year. Right next to them is the New York Botanical Gardens, coming in at 1.3 million visitors a year. Then, of course, there's Fordham University that has over 15,000 students here, most of them boarding here, some boarding down at Lincoln Center, but we probably have, I would imagine, somewhere between 10, 11,000 students boarding here whose parents come here. As someone who's been a landlord in the community for 30 years, largely renting to Fordham students, the number one most asked question by parents to me is, when I come down to visit my kids, where can I stay? And that's been for years. And quite frankly, they don't stay in the Bronx at all. They either stay in Manhattan, or many of them stay at a number of hotels up on Tuckahoe Road, because they're not looking to stay in a motel. They're looking to stay in a full service, hotel. Not to mention the people that come to our neighborhood. I mean, we have tens of thousands of people that visit the neighborhood every week. We have 10,000, we serve over 10,000 meals in this community. Now, what you might not realize is 83.5% of the business in Little Italy comes from more than 5 miles away. And more than 40% comes from more than 40 miles away. We're not a local neighborhood. We are a tourist neighborhood. It's not uncommon to see people driving down 3, 4, 5 hours to come down here and shop. And what they do is they shop for their entire block. And every week someone else takes a turn coming down here. And we have people that come quite a distance to eat. And I would think that some of those people, you know, might want to have a few drinks, hang out and spend the weekend here and maybe drop in to see the zoo and the gardens also. If you've ever tried to get a room at any of, you know, there's a motel in the neighborhood and there's motels all up and down Boston Post Road. Not all of them, in my opinion, the nicest place to stay, but you can't get a room in any of them during the summer. They're filled with people going to the Bronx Zoo.
Right.
So that justifies right there the need for the hotel. And don't forget, at Fordham University, you have baseball games, not baseball, excuse me, basketball, football, graduation, parents' weekends, all these things that bring tens of thousands of people from out of the area and even out of the state here.
Right.
So that justifies the reason for it.
Thank you, Mr. Franz. I actually wanted to hear from Mr. Padilla, who is actually against this project. Mr. Padilla, can you tell us why and how you think it will actually affect the community, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, I want to begin by saying that, as you well know, I've asked for a moratorium due to the pandemic. As we know, zip code 10458, where the project is proposed, is a zip code which the numbers had been increasing, and at the moment they are decreasing in terms of COVID-19. That being said, I've also publicly asked through a press release recently that the borough president issue a no vote, and that the public advocate for the city of New York, Jamani Williams, also review, intervene, and issue an opinion and comment on this particular land use matter. The reason is that there's recently raised questions. I've been examining some of the timing on this project, and it appears that there may have been an intent to rush the project to avoid what may be coming towards a city council, which is legislation number 1572A, which that would call for a racial disparity study. So, you know, and the timing of it is kind of suspicious because it doesn't appear from the review of the minutes from the land use committee meetings that there was a presentation made by the developer, whether or not there was going to be a discussion of the impact on the community, the residents, the infrastructure, and the parking. Now, subsequent to that particular meeting, there were 2 articles. There was one in yimby.com where there's a discrepancy on the amount of hotel rooms that the project is going to bring. According to their article, it shows that there's going to be 176 rooms. According to the land use committee meetings, it shows that there's going to be 145. And then according to the Bronx Times article, that shows that they're going to be 146. So there's the one discrepancy, and there are also other discrepancies in terms that whether or not there has been an architect that has provided plans for this, and also whether or not the developer had acquired all the property that's necessary for this development. Now, some of the impact on the community during the construction project is going to be that it's going to bring, depending on what season of the year it's done, additional traffic and parking issues to the community. Some of the issues that may be brought forth after the development may be the displacement of residents within that community, and also rising rents, as we see that other developers may want to, you know, push out tenants that perhaps may be rent regulated or rent stabilized, and to develop other projects as well. Now, before the project, some of the issues that we have and how it will affect the community is that during the community the hearing, there was no discussion on income levels to qualify for the 17 affordable apartments that project is going to bring in the housing aspect of it. And 17 apartments, given the substantial land use designation that it's requiring, is I believe it's too little. We don't know, once again, how it's going to affect the schools in the area, because as we know that we have overcrowded schools in the area, and if you're bringing an additional, I believe it's 56 housing units to that area. They are going to utilize schools. There's no indication whether any of the fact that what's going to happen with the mom and pop businesses that are on that stretch, and also to the residents of 2159 Hughes Avenue and 2157 Hughes Avenue, which are single family homes which are currently occupied. So, there are a number of issues that have been that this project raises questions, and these are the reasons why I believe it's going to affect the community.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. I actually wanted to ask Mr. Franz if he can say something in response to your claims that this process may have been a little unfair. Mr. Franz, if you can just talk on the ULURP process and the support that this project received and your response to Mr. Padilla's claims.
Sure. Just a couple of quick comments. One, and this is in no particular order, it's just what I remember Mr. Padilla saying. I'm not sure what COVID-19 has to do with this, because this building construction will not start for a year and a half. Occupancy won't be ready for 3 years. Two, the developer does have all the property. And as far as impact studies, traffic studies, all of that has to be considered by the Department of Buildings before the ULURP process could even start. Plans, impact on traffic, impact on the environment, even impact on the shadow that the building will cast is all done by the Department of Buildings. And until they're happy with it and certify it, it doesn't even go to the ULURP process. So all that has been taken into account already. As far as the businesses there, they've all been on a month-to-month lease for quite a while. By quite a while, I mean many years, in anticipation of this process going up. You can't tell a person what to do with his own property. They're not looking for any tax incentives or anything like that. This is all being paid for by Mr. Bartari. And I believe it is around 140 something rooms. But of course, until the buildings department approves the final plans, you don't really know 100%, but it'll probably be in the upper 140s. I also believe there's more than 17 rental units that are going to be there for affordable housing. I believe it's somewhere closer to 27, which is necessary because we have a lot of antiquated housing in the neighborhood. As far as parking, and this is the thing I'm most interested in, is this building will have a parking lot for more than 150 cars, more than can be utilized by the hotel. Now, anyone who's paid attention to the community and the business improvement district over the years knows that we fight tooth and nail with the Department of Transportation for every parking spot. The only factor limiting growth in that community is parking, the ability for people to get here. This will provide more parking than the municipal lot, which holds 51 cars, of which they just took 4 spaces away from us to put zip cars in there. So this will offer considerably more parking allowance to grow. I don't know if people realize that we have over 1,700 full-time jobs in this little community, mostly employing people from the community. And we are in the poorest congressional district in the United States. That's how this could be an economic boom to this neighborhood, by creating more parking, creating more jobs, bringing more business to the community. So we've been in favor of this for a long time. Now, as far as the ULURP process, that's regulated by, city ordinance. If there was a moratorium placed against it, and it's your right to ask for one, then obviously it couldn't be done anywhere in the city, but since there is no moratorium against it, and, Zoom meetings and online meetings have become a de facto way of business over the last year, I don't think that is sufficient grounds for holding up, a multi-million-dollar project and expecting the developer to absorb the brunt of that when he's not doing anything that's not being done all over the city and is within the complete norms of the way business is transacted today.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Franz. And Mr. Padilla, did you say you were calling for a moratorium on the developments happening in the Bronx as well as the ULURP process as well? Can you clarify on what you were asking for in the beginning?
The moratorium stands from the fact that we're right now considered in an emergency at the state level. Remember, we're in an emergency. Governor Cuomo has issued the emergency, and therefore, that our numbers in terms of COVID and have increased in that zip code 10458, and also in the general Bronx area. Reminding that once the vaccinations go through, then those numbers are expected to decrease, and perhaps it would be probably a better idea then to go ahead with some of the issues that that need clarification with this project. But in terms of the moratorium, land use, the ULURP process was designed to basically give an opportunity to citizens and elected officials to comment on pending land use matters. In this particular case, there were no elected officials that provided any testimony. And also the opportunity for the ULURP process may have been violated because this was done with a Zoom meeting. So, and during the committee hearings, all they discussed was the matter of bringing forth a hotel to the community without any discussion of any impacts. The ULURP process, it was completely unfair in terms of, you know, how things are supposed to be done under that procedure. And that's why I'm calling for the borough president to, once he reviews it, to issue a no vote.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla and Mr. Franz. Is there another community discussion coming up regarding the hotel, or was that the end of the ULURP process? I know that there's another process after Community Board 6 met. What is the next step in the Arthur Avenue Hotel?
Well, there's been numerous presentations by the developer in the community already, to the bid, to the zoo, to the gardens, to Fordham University, and publicly. He also made a public presentation at the meeting of the Community Planning Board Land Use Committee when the committee reviewed it and recommended it to the full board. Now, once the ULURP process starts, which has already started, yes, there was a hearing held by the board, and then at another meeting, there was a vote held. Now, this is just the first step. I've been involved with these things before in the community. Of course, I watch all the development in the community. Politicians are typically not here at this point. The Community Planning Board gets a chance to get a response from the community, and their vote is just an opinion. So they approve this project, but that's simply an opinion. There'll be another hearing now at the borough president level, which anyone's welcome to attend. And the borough president's office will render an opinion, which again is just an opinion. After that, there'll be yet another hearing at the Department of Planning in detail. And now their vote counts. If they vote against it, the project is stopped. But if they approve it, it goes on to a vote of the entire city council, which will not be happening for quite some time from now. We don't even know who our city councilman will be at that time. But if they vote against it, again, it is stopped. If they approve it, it could still be stopped by the mayor. So there's more than enough time for people to ask questions, to attend reviews, and more than enough time for politicians to weigh in, and several places where this project could be stopped if deemed inappropriate. So the process has just begun. It's not at the end by any means. This is just the, it's just started. So if anybody wants to make any input at this time, there's still plenty of time left. And I believe I could answer any one of the issues that Mr. Padilla is confused about. I believe they all have been answered, and maybe he just hasn't had access to all the information. But I'm happy to provide that to him or anyone else.
Before we go, Mr. Franz, if you can provide an email address or a source where people can comment or make any questions at this time for Community Board 6.
I don't know the community board's email address offhand. I'm sure you can look it up online. I'm sure the community board will be happy to hear them. I'm happy to offer my own personal email address to answer anyone's questions. And my email address is simply my name, Franz, as you can see there, Frank, Franz, at verizon.net. My family's been here for over a century in this community. I'm one of the founders of the Community Planning Board. I've been on the police council, the church council. I live 2 blocks from where this hotel is going up. So believe me, if I thought it was a bad idea, I'd be the one screaming louder than anyone else against it.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us for this discussion today. If you have any questions regarding the Arthur Avenue Hotel and the recent ULURP process, you may also reach out to Bronx Community Board 6 via email at bronxcb6@bronxcb6.org. We'll be right back. Welcome back. 2021 tax filing season has already began on February 12th. Throughout the show, we will continue to invite tax experts to help guide you through this year's tax season. How are things different? What are some of the things you need to know? Joining us now to share more about his business and taxes this year is Jeffrey Almanzar, Senior Tax Partner at Commission ENT LLC. Welcome, Jeffrey. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for having me here. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. So first, for those who are not familiar, can you tell us about your business, Commission ENT LLC, and the services that you offer?
Okay, so we're a tax office based out of New York. We basically help small businesses and individual people that want to file their tax returns. And right now, our main focus is helping the small businesses, being that there's a lot of people that became unemployed due to COVID. So we're getting a huge influx in people that are venturing off into their small businesses. So we're definitely, taking a lot of focus on that. So we're, a full-scale accounting firm. We help people with taxes and businesses, and we create partnerships with all of our clients where we're pretty much are their go-to for everything financial at this point. So pretty much that's what we do.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And as I mentioned in the beginning, the filing season for taxes began on February 12th. What are some of the other deadlines that we should keep in mind this year?
So the filing season started February 12th, but for a lot of the taxpayers that have dependents that file with the earned income credit, those tax returns are actually starting to process on the 22nd. So you can definitely file now, but they won't be processed till the 22nd. So they won't see a refund check till maybe the first or second week of March. So that's a big date, because a lot of people are rushing to get their tax returns. Obviously, you want to do that because if you want your refund, faster, you want to be able to be in that line of having your tax return being filed. But just keep in mind that it's not going to be processed till the 22nd. So you have a time frame. So there's people obviously that want to pay their rent on the 1st. That's probably not going to be a possibility for those taxpayers that have EIC. And then obviously the next deadline would be April 15th, when it's the tax deadline for the season. One thing about April 15th is that it doesn't necessarily mean you can't file after the fact. So April 15th is the deadline to not acquire a penalty if you owe money. But if you're getting a refund, you can still file after the fact, So it's not like, oh man, I missed the deadline, I can't file anymore. And then the next thing is also an extension. So you can file for a 6-month extension, and then you can file your tax returns on October 15th.
Got you. And Jeffrey, what are some of the circumstances for people to file for an extension? Like, are there any specific cases where people should wait to file this year?
In my experience, there shouldn't ever be a reason to not file your tax returns. You should always file your tax returns. There's a lot of people that haven't filed tax returns in years, and time just flies by and they haven't filed. A lot of people that wanted to take advantage of all these small business loans and a lot of these grants and a lot of these, help that they were giving to self-employed individuals wasn't able to take advantage of these grants because they didn't have any tax returns filed. So during this COVID time, there's so much that's unpredictable, so you want to make sure that your taxes are filed. You have stimulus checks that a lot of people didn't get because they didn't have their taxes filed. So one of the requirements to have a stimulus check is to have your 2018-19 or 2020 taxes filed. A lot of those people that didn't get those stimulus checks now have another opportunity to claim them on their 2020 tax returns.
Okay, so just so our viewers understand, this year they can file their taxes and report that they haven't received the stimulus check, and then they can receive that check within the refund at the same time?
Exactly.
Got you. Thank you, Jeffrey, for clarifying that.
Yep.
Are there any, we're under a new administration, the Joe Biden administration. Are there any significant changes in our taxes this year under this administration?
So for this tax year, for 2020, is still under the Trump tax federal laws. So there's not going to be any significant changes this year. So a lot of Biden new tax laws and everything that's coming with his administration is probably going to start on 2021. There's a few things that he was able to add for this tax season. One of them is being the charitable contribution. So you're able to take a $300 charitable contribution with your 2020 tax form, which pretty much offsets your taxable income. And then that will reflect a difference in your refund could be anywhere from 60 to 50 to $60. If you're owing or if you're getting a refund, that's what those $300 will reflect.
Got you. And Jeffrey, can you also help us define the difference between credits and deductions? A lot of times people get confused with the two, and they think that one reflects in their refund amount. Can you just help us like understand what the difference is?
Right. So credits are like earned income credit, child tax credit, the stimulus checks, those are credits. And then deductions are what the charitable contribution is. It's an offset to your income. So your donations, you have the teachers, that's a credit, so there's also something we call in the accounting world, the above the line and the below the line. So the above the line would be the adjustments to the income tax, and then the below the line would be the credit. So if you really look at a 1040, I don't want to get too technical with the name of the forms and all these things. I want to keep things as simple as possible, but you usually get your tax return that has 2 pages. So in the first page you see your income, and then you see whatever adjustments to income tax would be there. And then in the second page you'll be able to see the credits.
Got it. And how about unemployment, Jeffrey? A lot of people lost their jobs this year due to the pandemic and last year. Is unemployment income taxable? And what should people who lost their jobs due to the pandemic expect on their tax returns?
So unemployment has become a huge problem this tax season because a lot of people didn't get the taxes taken out. And unemployment is taxable. It's pretty much income. The only problem with unemployment is that it's not earned income. So you won't get credits for children and stuff like that, but it's still taxable, so you still have to file it. So the other problem is that a lot of people started collecting unemployment during half the year. So what happens with that is that unemployment, if you did opt in to have the taxes taken out, they only take out 10%. So the problem with that is that if you made an extra 30, 40,000 at another job, and now you have this income coming in, now you're in a different tax bracket because the unemployment is only 10%, but they take that, 20, 30,000 you made in unemployment and they add it to the other 30, 40, and now you're not at a 10% anymore. So now a lot of people end up paying with unemployment because they're adding, when you collect unemployment, they're expecting this taxpayer to have unemployment be their only income. So it's only taxed at a 10% rate. So there's a lot of people, that definitely, you want for them not to be surprised if they end up having to pay, especially with the state, because the state takes out a lot less than the federal in unemployment. So a lot of people end up, if they don't end up paying the federal, they end up paying the state.
Right.
So that's probably one of the biggest things that's happening this year.
That's one of the complicated cases, and I'm sure that a lot of people this year are going to have a lot of complications and difficulties filing their taxes. Could you just tell us about the benefits of having a tax preparer such as yourself, help out and assist with these complicated tax returns this year?
Well, I wouldn't see anyone being able to figure this out this year, especially this year with so many things that's happening and people are just frustrated, if the stimulus check, the unemployment, the taxes, a lot of people relocated, a lot of people moved out, so now they have to file state to state taxes. So it's a lot of different complications and forms to fill out. So, I like to explain taxes, it's numbers, but to me it's a form of art, because at the end of the day, I'm creating a story, I'm creating a scenario, I'm creating a situation that happened in real time, right? So you're living your life, you're working, you're not working, you're moving, so all these things have to make sense because that's how the government's going to see it when you submit these tax returns, so a lot of people are very concerned with being audited, so you also have to be able to explain your situation. Like you can't say, oh, I collected unemployment, I was working at the beginning of the year, but now I have a 1099. So now there's another problem. There's people that are collecting unemployment, but they were still working at the same time. you know, so now unemployment is going to go after those people to try to get those money, that money that they shouldn't ever receive because they were always still working, you know. So it's a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different complications that anyone without a tax preparer, I don't see how they're going to find the best solution, you know, without the experience.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. And another thing I wanted to ask, Jeffrey, was that last year the IRS stated that many tax returns were late due to COVID-19 mail processing delays. Were any of your clients affected by this, and is this a possibility again this year?
Um, I was very fortunate that maybe just out of, you know, 1,000 tax returns that I do a year, maybe 2 or 3 maybe were delayed. And that's also because I do a lot of the tax returns early. So that's probably another benefit to do your tax returns early, is to foresee any complications. But in reality, no one could foresee a pandemic happening. A lot of the delays were happening because pretty much everything shut down. There was a lot of people in the government, a lot of people in the IRS, a lot of people in the post office that were pretty much just sent home. You know, so you would call, try to contact a personnel. You couldn't get in contact with anyone, you know, and there's still people waiting for the refund from last year,
Yeah.
you know, and a lot of it is because, you know, a lot of things happen at the same time. So now they're filing 2020 tax returns and now they're busy again. So, you know, there was a lot of people that moved to New Jersey, and in New Jersey, they still have the Health Act active. So a lot of people there still have to file for their health insurance. So a lot of those people didn't file, and now they have to file it in order to get their refunds.
Oh, wow.
You know, so that's another situation there, that when you move to a different state, they have different laws that if you didn't file it correctly, that can also delay your refund.
Right.
You know,
A lot of different factors. Now, before we go, Jeffrey, please give us more information on Commission ENT LLC. How can people learn more about your services and contact you for this tax season?
Yeah, so I'm on pretty much most social networks, on Facebook, Instagram. They all go by Commission Tax, and we have a team of about 6 members here, and you can contact us. Right now, due to the COVID, we're pretty much handling everything remotely. So we'll do virtual interviews, and we'll collect all of the information via email. And then we'll do a closing video call, and then just email the tax returns. And it keeps everyone safe and streamlined, and, you know, answer all the questions that everyone may have. And then we take notes, you know, with our conversations to see if there's anything else underlying that we can probably help that client with, whether it's to buy a house, whether it's to open up a business, you know, whether there's tax returns in the past that might need to be reviewed. You know, so, you know, we take our time with everyone, and we want to create relationships for the long run with everyone that we deal with.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeffrey, for joining us today and sharing, you know, all this important information about tax season this year. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And then definitely invite me anytime.
Of course. Jeffrey
Okay.
Almanzar is the senior tax partner at Commission ENT LLC. For more information, you can call Jeffrey at 646-232-4084 and follow at Commission Tax on social media. That's all for our show today. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, wishing you and your family safety and wellness now and always. Take care.